Welcome back to the podcast. I am kind of excited for this episode because it's something that I have been wanting to talk about for a while now, honestly. Those of you who know me in person know that I swore for the longest time that I would not drink. And I kind of stand by that in that time of my life. And also that has changed. So I feel like drinking-ish for this episode title makes sense because that's kind of how I felt. When I turned 21, I decided a few days before that I would be willing to try a drink. I am Hispanic. We're going to preface with that. I'm Hispanic. Genetically, Hispanics are more likely to have issues with alcohol and alcoholism. So that itself, that is just the way that our genes work. That is just hereditary there. And so already I was a little not sure. I know multiple people in my family who either don't drink because of issues in the rest of their family, or I know people who have actually ended up having a lot of issues with it. Whether it's genetic or not genetic, I have just seen enough that it made me definitely a little unsure. And I also had experience being around people drinking underage. I tried a few drinks underage and it just was never my thing. There was one time where I remember very clearly, I had a drink and it wasn't even that much. I remember feeling very depressed after that. I just remember noticing that I didn't have very much, so I was fine, but I remember noticing how my mood changed. And that was when I decided, okay, look, I've had enough issues with mental health. I don't really want to play with this because I don't really know what it's gonna do. So that was kind of when I made that decision. I had also seen a lot of people I was surrounded in the past a lot more by people who were drinking a lot, and I would see the way that it would impact them. I would, when I first got to college, I thought about going to a few parties and they honestly ended up sucking because the entire time I was just taking care of people who could barely even walk. I had to, help them get back to bed. I had to help them get in a safe place. I had to, and then hearing the apologies the next day of, I'm so sorry, I was a mess, and that type of thing, where honestly, it just made me decide, whatever I end up doing, I'm going to be very careful about this. So for a while, I kind of went to the place where I was like, I'm just not going to drink, because I had known how it had made me feel and because I had seen how it can hurt other people. And I didn't want to let that happen to myself. So that's where I kind of was like, yep, nope, not gonna drink. It's just not gonna be a thing for me. But at one point I do remember going back and looking in the past from the time that I wasn't feeling very great after having a drink. And it was actually my mom who pointed out to me that, hey, Alessia, you were actually not doing well at that time in your life, period. It may have been the drink may have made that worse, but I can literally show you text messages from that day and tell you that you, even before that happened, were already feeling pretty terrible. And somehow I hadn't remembered that. I'm honestly not sure how that's possible, but I hadn't remembered it because I'm going back and looking and realizing, yeah, now I do remember. I was at that point having PMDD and it wasn't under control yet. I wasn't on medication for it yet. And that was one of the 3 out of the 4 weeks of the month that I was not doing well. I was in a place where I was on vacation. I was having a lot of fun. I was everything around me was new and exciting and fun, but I was feeling very down and sad and the world was just not great. I was also at the time being bullied in school, and that was kind of my escape it was an amazing experience. I was on vacation. I was very excited about it. And I was really struggling. Mentally, I was really struggling. There was a lot that was going on. I was dealing with some ostracism. I was dealing with figuring out what's going on with these people around me, all of this stuff. And it was not a time in my life where I think that was a good experiment for me. And I realized that, and I don't know, I somehow had totally forgotten that. And when I remembered, I thought, okay, yes, I was already feeling that way. And so alcohol probably made it worse. Even if it was just a little, it probably, it's not going to help. And so I decided, okay, My 21st birthday was coming up, and I thought, you know what? I think I'm willing to at least experiment with this in safe places where I feel comfortable. Now, I want to be clear also, if I had turned 21 a few years ago, I would have probably I would have said, no, I'm just not going to drink. My life a few years ago versus now were very different. The people that I was surrounded by, I don't think I would have felt safe drinking. And the way that my health was at the time, I don't think it would have been good for me. I think it could have damaged some things. That's kind of where I was coming from, and it wasn't until it dawned on me that wait, my life is different. When I made the decision I wasn't going to drink versus now, my life is different. And there was a very clear reason as to why I had decided I wasn't going to drink. And those, that context surrounding that wasn't the same anymore. So I figured, okay, it might be safe to experiment with this. So I did. And honestly, on my birthday, I had, I think, 2 drinks, and they were spaced throughout the day, and honestly felt fine. And I have kind of come to the point where it's I like drinking in terms of, I almost want to say the aesthetic behind it. Not really the aesthetic behind it. I don't feel like that sounds right. But in terms of the fact that yes, I can. And sometimes it's fun to get a little treat or something. But I have noticed that the moment I start to feel it, that's when I know I'm done. Because I will never, I think, feel safe enough with who I am. Not safe, but I know myself, and I know that I have to have limits. And I think that's something that, especially being in college, especially being young, is something that a lot of people end up experimenting by maybe having bad experiences with it for themselves. I think that's part of life. I think that's part of growing up. And for me, I think it's different because I've seen it from other people, and I also have had such unique experiences with my own health that I know that I need to be careful. Because I also know I know who I am, and I know I can become obsessive about things. I know that I can go a little too far with things, and I don't want that to be the case with this, right? I feel like if I ever were to go a little too far with things and become obsessive and have an issue with alcohol, it would take a while, but I don't even want to get close to that point. I know how long it has taken for me for my healing in my process, and I think that I need to be careful because I don't want to offset everything that I've worked on for my own life. I am not saying that in terms of something that's oh my gosh, I just know for myself personally, I need to be careful because I know my health, my genetics, and just the person that I am. I really don't like the feeling that too much alcohol gives you. I've definitely felt that in a way where maybe I ordered another drink and I realized, hey, that one's okay, maybe I shouldn't have gotten that next one, right? And that's when my end point, that's where my stopping point is, because I don't want to go further than that because I personally do not like how it makes me feel. But again, I have just had enough experiences with it that I don't feel, I guess, that is something that I need. I don't feel like that's something I need to experiment with, and I don't feel like that's something that I want to experiment with. And that is just me. That is me personally. With having a rare disorder, with having a lot of health issues, I know that I need to be careful. And I also know that I have set my life up in a way that has worked for me, and a routine that has worked for me to keep my mental health and my health in check. And I know that by drinking, I need to be really careful to not hurt myself with that. I need to be aware of where I am, my surroundings, my thought processes, all of that. That's something that I think it's in one aspect just me, of knowing my specific scenarios, it's unique to me because of my specific scenarios. But I also think that there's something that's not unique to me, and I think is becoming more of a thing lately, is I have a lot of friends who don't drink at all. And that is something that is huge to me, because I could have, again, a few years ago when I was in a very different situation, I would have honestly never found someone that was like that. It has been really empowering to me to see that like, yes, we can make these choices, especially as young people. I guess I have always typically thought of the college years as the years of drinking and partying and things like that. I mean, I don't think that's wrong. I think that's part of growing up. I think that's life. I think that's, what is typical of college. And I think, if that's how you experiment, I think, sure, be safe and sure. And I also have been seeing people experiment in different ways. And that might mean setting boundaries. That might mean deciding, hey, no, like I don't want to drink in this era of my life, maybe ever. Some of my best friends don't drink, and I love that for them. And I also love that in those scenarios, if I want to get a drink, sure, I totally can. And if I don't, that's okay. I've never felt pressured in this transition. Again, years ago, I felt very pressured. The life that I was in, I felt pressured to drink. I felt pressured to do drugs. And I have found that in the life that I'm in now, I don't feel pressured for anything. I am myself, and myself, who I am, is accepted no matter what. And I know that I am in a state right now where I am safe to experiment. I am safe to be myself, to maybe have a drink here or there, but also to be able to say no. Like, no, I don't really want to drink right now. No, I've had enough. I think I hit my limit. All of that kind of stuff where I feel very safe and secure in my life right now. And I know I get a little too close for comfort in where I used to be, that I don't want to get back to that place, right? And so I think that it's important and empowering to be able to talk about the fact that, like, yes, this is your 20s is the time to be experimenting. And if you want to, like, be safe and go for it. And also, your 20s, with that is experimenting. Like, some people might already kind of know where they're at, or some people might decide they want to go the other way. I think when I hear about your 20s being a year of experimenting, again, I hear it a lot about drinking, a lot about getting drunk, a lot about going to parties and things like that. And I also hear lately, I think it's now emerging that I've been seeing a lot of people saying, no, like, maybe that's not what I want. Like, maybe I do want to skip those years a little bit because, maybe I don't want that experimentation in my life. Maybe I have already had enough experience to know what I want and where I'm at, to know where, my limits and my boundaries are. Or maybe that's something that I'll have later in life instead. Maybe that's something that I just don't need right now. And I think that it's really important to be able to acknowledge that, because if you want to go ahead and experiment, that is wonderful. If you don't, that is okay too. Everyone has a different journey. And I know that I felt really pressured my first few years. Well, my first year of college and before that, I felt very pressured to do things a certain way. And I feel like it's important to talk about the fact that, like, it is completely up to you what your relationship with drinking is. It is completely up to you what your relationship with any of it is. And that is not something that you should ever feel pressured for. And if you feel pressured, then it's the wrong reasons. And I think that's super important. I've also started seeing, like, content creators online who are sober and talk about it, who don't drink and they love to talk about it. Actually, one of my best friends is an influencer online who doesn't drink. One of my other friends is the same way and has talked about it online. Like, there are so many different things where, like, I think it's so important that we are experimenting in all aspects right now, not just the get crazy, go crazy type of thing, which is great for some people, but also maybe a little calmer for some other people, because I know for me, that's not my personality type. I know for me that if I were to do that, I put myself in a situation where I maybe feel in danger, and I know this because I've been there. And I feel like it's super important to be able to do that, right? I have never really, I think, been honest about my experience a few years ago and how I felt very pressured. I did some things I'm not proud of. I really experienced things that I don't really feel like taught me anything except for to be scared, I guess. And I think that I learned from that. And I also think that, I don't know, those experiences were like, that was an era of my life that I am learning to heal from, and I think I still will forever be learning to heal from, but like, it wasn't me. And for some people, maybe that is them, but it wasn't me, and I was changing who I was to fit in, or because I felt pressured and because I didn't want to end up feeling worse because I said no. And I think that it's really important to be able to hear online that, like,
that's not the way it should be. That's, it is okay for you to not drink, and it is okay for you to set limits. In the past, I've actually told people when they come over to my place, they're not allowed to bring alcohol at all. Now I'm okay with it because I have found a balance and I feel more comfortable and I feel safe with myself. But I also know that I don't keep alcohol at home very often, if ever, because I am still at a place where I'm like, I am comfortable with maybe social drinking. I'm comfortable being out with my family, being out with close friends and getting a drink or two, but I'm not in a place yet where I know how to do that at home, maybe if there's no one else around, because again, I am slowly starting to find my balance and I'm slowly starting to see and understand what works for me and what my limits are. And I didn't know that before. I went beyond my limits. I watched other people go beyond their limits. And all I knew was that I needed to set boundaries, but I didn't know how. So it started with saying, I'm not going to drink at all. Then I realized maybe I can actually a little bit, but I have to have some really clear boundaries on that. And right now that means mainly in social situations. Maybe every so often I'll have a little bit at home, but usually that means I want to be with other people that I trust. And I do expect that to change at some point. Maybe I'll be okay with having a glass of wine or something in the afternoon. I don't know. And I'm okay with not knowing right now, and I'm okay with exploring it, because I think that is what's really important in especially these early 20s, is to be able to explore that. And I feel like being able to explore that in a healthy way, no matter if you're drinking or not. If you're not drinking, great, stay healthy. If you're drinking, great, stay healthy. If you're drinking a lot, okay, stay healthy. Everyone has different areas of comfort, of where they're comfortable, of where their balance is. And I think ultimately the best thing to keep in mind there is to stay healthy and stay true to yourself. And if that means going and partying and drinking, that's great. I have a lot of friends that do that too. I have a lot of friends that do great with it. And I also have a lot of friends that know they can't do that. It is, I think, 100% your journey. And I think being honest to your journey, and remember that everyone has their own journey. So not pressuring anyone, not shaming anyone. And also, if you are feeling pressured or shamed, call it out. If you feel safe calling it out, call it out. Or maybe those aren't your people then. It is this huge thing. And it's a thing where unfortunately, drinking can really have a really big impact on you. It really can hurt you. It can be really scary. And especially with, the drinking age in the US being 21, in Australia it was 18, and a lot of other places it's 18 or different ages. And that is an era where we are still exploring and figuring our lives out. Everyone is, no matter if you're 18 or you're 80, you're still figuring your life out. But especially right now, our brains are not completely developed. And that can mean that sometimes decision making, emotions are high and decision making is maybe not quite right at its peak yet. And it's important to be able to keep that in mind, try to be careful about the decisions that we make. And ultimately, I think, we live and we learn, and I think that's really important. So my journey so far, again, it's always changing. It might change. At some point, if I end up being in a place where I, maybe have more issues, because my health issues, they come and they go, right? And right now they're pretty under control, and I think they will be for a while. But I'm also totally aware of the fact that there might be a day where they kind of start to struggle again. I might need to work on some stuff. I might need to be careful. And I'm very aware of that too. And I'm also, I think very aware of the fact that there might be a time where I decide, nope, I'm going to take a break from drinking. I'm going to be careful in this moment because I just don't feel stable enough. I don't feel ready enough to be there. And I think that is super important. So all of this to be said, here's your, big sister telling you that, honestly, I am going to stick with that, because I know there's the big sister advice thing, and I really like that, because it's ultimately I just want to be this friend online that's helping people, that's just doing my little brain dumps and hopefully helping someone else with it. And I have siblings and stuff, but I've never really gotten to be the big sister. I'm a middle child, but I mainly know my siblings that are older than me. So I've never really gotten to be the big sister. So that's what I'm going to be, your big sister now. I'm your big sister. Thank you. But just a little thought process, just a little, where I'm at, my journey with it. And I feel like that's something that's really important to talk about and important to be transparent on, to be clear about, because I do think that journey is something that everyone goes through at some point. When you turn 21, maybe before that, maybe after that, there is a time where you have to, make a decision basically. Am I going to drink? Am I not going to drink? Am I going to set boundaries? Am I not going to set boundaries? What are those boundaries? All these different questions. It's something that everyone, we have to make in this society. It's a big decision. Maybe it doesn't feel like a big decision, but ultimately it is, and that journey is a big journey too, because it can really impact you. All that to be said, that's why I say I'm drinking-ish. I'm drinking, but with limits. Very careful. So kind of sometimes like I am kind of thinking like, maybe should I get a mocktail instead right now? I'm just not feeling it. Like all those different things where I think it's important to be honest and to be aware and to know your limits. So I'll see you next time, and yeah.